coming up on this episode of Once a Duck.
So I've been going to Autzen since it was just a hole in the hill, pretty much.
All that and more coming up on this episode of Once a Duck.
Where's your favorite place to take college game day? And I say every time, Eugene, Oregon.
Welcome, folks, to yet another episode of the Once a Duck podcast. Here with you once again are your Once a Duck hosts. I'm Sam, and of course, with us as always, the great Nick Cody, here to drop that former Oregon football knowledge all over you, folks. Welcome in. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Sam, and as always, you can find us on our socials at Once a Duck or individually at Samuel101TS and at Nick R. Cody. Thank you for following. Make sure you like, subscribe, and let us know what you want to see or your thoughts about the episode or upcoming opponent this week down in the comments below of this YouTube video. And guys, thanks for subscribing along with us. I know it's been an insanely fun season so far. There's so many people to go out there and listen to. And finally, we have a guest this week. We actually get to talk to somebody who talks Oregon football in quite a prominent place with the coming fans, up on this episode of
on
Saturdays in Autzen Stadium. All that and more coming up after we talk about this Oklahoma State ass whooping. Sam, you were there for it. What was it like?
I mean, I think you just kind of described it perfectly, Nick. Between you saying that and Gary Bryant celebrating in the back of the end zone, I think we all kind of get a pretty clear picture of what this game was. This was an ass whooping, baby. My goodness, this was a nasty one. This is one of those ones where I was kind of feeling bad going into shout. I was like, all right, fellas, we get it. That point's made. We get it. But Nick, that was one of the most fun games at Autzen. Of course, shout out to all of our friends that we were used to seeing there. I was able to hang out with a lot of them beforehand, was able to see people throughout the game. It's always a pleasure to enjoy that Autzen community. But man, by the time we were in that stadium, in and ready for that game, by the time that they were given that big CBS intro, it was on, man. This team was ready to go. They came out fired up. It took all of 2 plays to find payday. It was a lot of fun in Autzen on Saturday.
And then that third play was another long Oregon touchdown with highlight of the game for me. I thought the blocking, the pickup, and then more-to-more connection. Man, there's nothing quite like it. And I was right there in Seattle GameWorks with a ton of not only former Ducks, a bunch of incoming Ducks from the Seattle area were there for a celebration. And I was like, you guys I can't wait for the experience you're going to have as students in Autzen Stadium here in a couple weeks when you get the students back. But we're going on the road until then. It'll be a while, but Autzen Stadium, so far, man, it's been such a key in these first 2 games because it's caused a lot of these opponents to just fold on themselves with the penalties, procedural, and, just overall. It felt like Oklahoma State was overwhelmed by not only this team, but that crowd there in Autzen Stadium.
It seemed like the entire situation was a punch in the mouth, whether it was the opponent, whether it was the play calling, whether it was the environment. It was all really rough for Oklahoma State, and we kind of knew it would be. We said going into this one that this was going to be probably one of those situations where, you were going to be a little bit, maybe not outsized, but outspeeded for sure, outpowered probably, and my goodness, was Oklahoma State from the very first 2 plays of that game. The first one, just a nice little setup play to spread everything out, and then boom, Noah Whittington right up the middle, absolutely blasting through a cannon. Maybe the part that was most impressive to me, the fact that he got to the hole that Kenyon Sadiq was creating so quickly. He had to hop through it and still had the acceleration to beat both of the safeties. Some really impressive stuff there. Then you brought it up. Immediately after running for that long touchdown, the next second Noah Whittington touches the field, what does he do? One of the nastiest blitz pickups you will see. And then, more-to-more connection is something that we are going to see a lot more of.
Yeah, and a block to be nasty, man, it doesn't always look like a pancake. But when you stop somebody who's running at full speed and you hit them so hard that they come to a complete stop, That right there is incredible and something you don't see from a lot of running backs at this level. Obviously, at the next level, something that they expect. And obviously, the way Oregon's been producing these backs recently, I could definitely see Noah going and stepping up at that next level, especially so far with what we've seen from this season, as he's just kind of taken over as that dude. But we've got a lot of that dudes, and it turns out, man, a lot of them are in the backfield. A lot of them are at skill positions. But I was, again, really, really excited with our 2 tackles up front, man. They were throwing guys around. And it just looks like, I really love the intensity that they have to not be satisfied. Because it felt at times coming out early last season that we'd just, hey, we'll get the win and be satisfied with that. No, we want to prove a point to everybody that last season, going undefeated in the regular season and then winning the Big Ten Conference, it wasn't a fluke, and that this team is different and going to be better than that. And I love that attitude because you're going to need it. You've got a target on your back going into every single game this season, and it's only going to get more difficult here as we get on our first true road test.
Well, and I think every single thing you're speaking to right there comes back around to effort. Whether it is what Noah's doing out there and doing the kind of things that I think we're seeing why he earned that starting spot, doing all those kind of effort plays, to the effort that we're seeing from the skill positions, whether it's Sadiq, whether it's Gary, whether it's Corian getting downfield, blocking for their teammates, or whether it is that offensive line that you've been talking about. I think we really have a solidified starting group. We have both Harkey on one side, World on the other side. You've got Dave and you've got Emmanuel Pregnog there at the guards, and you've got Poncho at center. And that is a group that has come together really, really well. This is four new full-time starters on the offensive line this year as opposed to last year. And you are seeing a group that looks as if they've been playing together for years. And it is because they're all not only on the same page, like mentally, but they are all on the same page in terms of the effort they are putting in. The number one play that sticks out to me is the end around that ended up with the air hill in the end zone. You had Sadiq, a pancake block on that play. Also, Alex Harkey chasing a dude all the way down into the end zone, finishing his block. The effort has been at a level that I don't know if I've seen from an Oregon team in a long time this early in the year.
No, it only compares, I think, to Chip's probably final year in the level of just drive and talent that we see on every single level, especially offensively. It's like everything's clicking. You finally see everyone there is really committed to the plan. And, props to Will Stein. I mean, the vision he has for this offense is awesome because you don't need the trick plays, but when you do that, you don't need it to win a game. But when you're able to go out there and execute it as it's drawn up, that means you've done it in practice successfully. It's looked good. And you know what? The players love it. I know the fans are always going to love it, but when you're out there and you're an offensive lineman and you get to be a little sneaky and just think, oh, I'm going to let them think you beat me on a screen. No, I'm going downhill because we're throwing it back. Those kind of plays are so much fun because you just see the cavalry of the offensive line going downfield. And unfortunately, sometimes we're just not fast enough to get our blocks set up before the running backs got to get downfield and try and score. So, man, those plays are just always the most fun. And it's just a throwback to, I remember everything that really put Oregon on the map. So, making that a regular part of your offense is just a fun thing. And it really messes with defensive coordinators because it could be one play you run once all season, but they're going to have to coach their team up on how they're going to defend it.
And I mean, you're absolutely right. And I love that you're bringing up Will Stein right here because I think he's a guy who just must be having so much fun to start this year already. I forget, again, what happens when we generally record these episodes just a little bit later in the week than everything else is being done. There are a lot of ideas and thoughts that get thrown out there by one person or another. And you're like, oh, yeah, no, that's a really good point. Again, this is one of those, I forget who was making this point, but somebody brought it up. Will Stein has had some guys who can really throw a football while working here at Oregon. I don't think he's had one who does it as effortlessly as Dante Moore. We've seen Bo heave some balls. We saw Dylan absolutely heave some against Ohio State. The way that Dante can just stand at the 50, flick a ball downfield, Malik Benson's catching it while crossing the goal line way out in front of him. I don't know if we've seen anything that effortless in that way from an Oregon quarterback of late since probably Justin Herbert. And if you're an offensive coordinator like Stein, you've got to be in love with that.
Combined with what appears to be the demeanor and poise. I mean, just a complete 180 from some of the things that we saw that were his flaws as a true freshman down in Coach Kelly's offense in UCLA. And that just means like, man, that guy's really coachable too. And that's so huge. That's the position that you need to take in as much coaching from as many angles as possible, because there's just so much football and the quarterback's got to know all of it.
And you are 1,000% right in the quarterback knowing all of that. One thing that I have really enjoyed about Dante Moore and something that he's known is just to be able to trust a lot of his teammates here. Whether that is something like we saw on the play where you had Noah Whittington who came up and picked up that blitzer. Dante said it after the game. That little rollout he did, that was just completely him in the moment, recognizing, hey, Noah's going to get this guy. I can move myself out here and be able to take a better view of what's happening. And he also trusts his receiver. He says, hey, this is a freshman. He's been in this college system for 6 months now. He's still going to nail this route. And he absolutely did. And I think that trust is something that is going to be so big with this team moving forward, especially with the kind of games that are on the horizon.
Yeah, and again, what Lanning has preached is really just building that trust and that family so that you're playing for each other, because that really is the strongest thing. And, you know, it holds up years and years later, and that's a big reason. You know, every single one of our former athlete guests will tell you, you know, there's just something really special about Oregon. And yeah, when you make it that much more special, the more special team it feels like you're going to have. And this feels like the beginning of a very special season, but it's not just on the offensive side. It's easy to get that kind of mindset when you put 69 points up in 3 quarters and, you know, you get all your healthy quarterbacks out there into the game. But the defensive side of the ball is where we really got to finish talking about, because it's how we finished the game. Got 2 interceptions for a touchdown. And the greatest thing, you know, shout out to Jan. Everybody remembers I brought him to the tailgate for the Washington game. We're sitting there and at the GameWorks watch party. And after the first interception, I said they're not going to try and run the ball. They're going to throw another on the very next series. And boy, was I right. And he couldn't believe it. He was like, wow. And I just kind of said it nonchalantly. I wasn't trying to like make it into a bet, but it was completely 100% right. It kind of, you know, stubborn Mike Gundy putting his guy out there and, you know, put him on the line. And I was like, oh, I didn't like the play call. But yeah, to finish with 2 pick sixes, what a day for the defense too.
Well, and I'll tell you, when I was referring at the very beginning to kind of feeling bad a little bit, it was after that second pick 6, right? And I'll tell you why more than anything I felt bad about it. It was the same mistake, man. It was the exact same mistake. It was the exact same not seeing that it was Mixon was doing it from a linebacker position and Woodyard was doing it from a nickel spot. But like either way, they're still in that in-between zone, hiding out behind the defensive line. No one could see him right there. The quarterback's just thrown back across his body because, Lord Almighty, he's about to get killed by 3 guys much bigger than him. And throws the interception. It's the exact same mistake. It was twice. It was right in the side of the field where we were, man. It was right in front of me both times right there.
I love the Ducks versus them camera angle because you could see Lanning knows it's coming. Lanning's right there, and he's like, got him.
And hey, if you want to see how excited I was by that play, if you go watch the Ducks versus them video, when Peyton Woodyard's taking you across the goal line, you do see a very excited number 2 jersey jumping up and down in the stands. Just saying, your boy was hyped on that one.
I think everyone was pretty hyped. Even the incoming freshmen that were already getting ready to leave GameWorks were pretty hyped about that.
Well, I was about to say, thank goodness we've got recruiting coordinator Cody on the scene here, making sure these kids don't miss a commitment.
Man, I was harping on one of the parents. I was like, really, you're gonna once your kid's gone and you guys have gone to a game, you're gonna regret like coming and being here at this. Because you should be going down there. You're going to already think after your first thoughts and experiences like, oh, okay, anything we didn't know? And then I ran down the entire list. I forgot to tell him T-Rod's tailgate, but maybe in a couple years.
Dude, you might need somebody from Bone Thugs and Harmony. Are you kidding me? Anything possible.
Wow. That's well, we can probably get to that a little bit later. That's pretty funny. But back to the defensive point of the football, man. Just this is potentially, just such a quarterback's nightmare of a defense, especially when you're in Alton Stadium. We had already mentioned the false starts, the procedural penalties caused by
Gary
that.
Danielson told you, man, they keep track of them.
Dude, that's such an advantage, and obviously not something we really have to consider worrying about on the road this week, considering the conditions and the limited number of tickets they could even sell in Northwestern in the given conditions. But it's just insane to think that, with the schedule we have this year, man, it would just be, if you were a quarterback with that on the schedule, I would just be having nightmares thinking about lining up with wherever Mateo's at, having to worry about that, evade whatever defensive player probably gets through the line, and then just knowing that I'm probably going to throw one up and serve it for 6 at some point during the game while taking a hit. That doesn't seem like a good day.
Well, speaking of this defense, in the rewatch, I liked, of course, I like to be able to go back and see the production as somebody who went to journalism school and all that dumb stuff, and like to be able to see how they put on the production. Watching the CBS production of this game, there was something that really stuck out to me, and it was that CBS listed 13 defensive starters for Oregon, which I thought made perfect sense.
Yeah.
I thought that was actually a really perfect way to handle it, right? Of course, there's only 11 guys onto the field at one time, but the fact that they were saying, hey, realistically, they're going to be shuffling guys in the defensive backfield as well as up front so much. It made perfect sense, because I think that's how this team is playing right now. They're playing in a way that is not interchangeable. I don't want to say interchangeable because it makes you think like, oh, it's just the system. It's not these. No, there are so many talented guys who are a part of this system that Oregon can do so many different things out of this defense that it truly is worth listing all of those players as starters, because they are going to be contributing as such.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, it's also the depth. That's the other thing. There's such a level of players that could start anywhere in the country and are 2 and 3. And that's just something, especially along the defensive front, that Oregon can't really say that we've had before.
And when we talk about it we talked about it, I should say, last week with the running backs a whole bunch. But I mean, if you look at this, you look at the edge room, there's 4, arguably 5, maybe even 6 guys who could be starting at a lot of other D1 programs. If you look at the interior defensive line, you have 4 guys, 5 guys you could say the exact same thing about. And that continues to happen wherever you look around the field. Heck, just look at the amount of veterans that are being legitimately pushed for time, if not having time taken from them by these young guys. That should just show you the level of depth that's on this team. I remember, again, during the broadcast, they were talking about Mekhi Hughes, and one of the things that Will Stein had brought up to them was the fact that, yeah, we had a full plan. We have a full plan. We just had no idea how good these young guys were going to be. And that seems to be the case all over this team. And that's a really good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of problems, just the way this defense has the ability to match up with whatever personnel you're going to be able to put out there on the field, really. And then again, just it seems like the drive that these guys have to play for each other, because that's what it really takes. If you're not the starting guy or the guy, to know that your reps are just as important, you're going to be put out there situationally. I mean, that's a huge buy-in, and knowing we have so much of that from the team, it's obvious that that's going to be a huge thing that is going to have to be packaged and taken on your first road trip. And this is going all the way out to Chicago now. So, I mean, everybody's pretty excited considering the big wins we've had, but I don't think that, we can instantly just assume that we're going to move forward and, just have it that easy. You have to be able to go and play mistake-free on the road when you aren't having the advantage of Autzen Stadium.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I love being able to see this Oregon team continue to grow, and being able to take that step of taking the show on the road will be a big part of that growth. A lot of these guys, they've never played a game outside of the friendly confines of Autzen Stadium, whether that be a spring game, whether that be the first 2 that have happened so far this season. Maybe even some guys that, were on the roster last year, got in some games, but weren't on the travel squad. This is your first time, putting on the sweatsuit, getting on the plane, doing the whole thing, living that experience. Now, Nick, there is something that I really do want to be able to ask you about, especially about this team as a whole, but first and foremost about this defense, because we have been talking about them. And it's just, what kind of mentality does it take, or what kind of mentality have you seen or faced against that is able to take the show on the road, obviously, but, be able to bring that intensity with you, even when you're going to an environment like this one at Northwestern, which for, factors outside of even anyone's control, you're going to be playing this game in an environment that's unique. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing about intensity is that there's so much that, internally motivates players, that every player is there for their own individual reason when you come into the program, but that buy-in that you build with your teammates in the off season and in the routines you build, that's the hugest thing. So the biggest way that you can make sure you maintain that is to make sure that your routines that you had at home and in the hotels are the same things that you take with you on the road. You just tailor them a little bit, and you be mindful of where you're going, where you're headed, and the slight differences in times that you're going to have to make. The biggest thing was always, the routine. Once we got to the hotel, it always stayed the same. And, mainly, the stuff I did, in my room the day of the game, or, hanging out in the hotel, or post meetings, all those things, are just always following a routine and knowing what the coaches had in place for you. There was just always that one thing, you were looking forward to the next thing and the next thing. And then all of a sudden, snack time, go to bed, wake up, breakfast, and football. And there's nothing better than that. And that routine just starts to feel really, really normal. It's habit forming. And then the kicking ass just comes with it.
Another area of growth, actually, I want to talk to you about, and it's with this offense. It was at the end of the first half. It's a 3-play sequence, right? We're not going to do a whole big breakdown of it. If you want that, I'm sure you can go check out Schwartz or Urban Meyer, or one of the many, many people doing all of that. But what was about this sequence that was so interesting to me is that all 3 plays showed us something very different that were all very valuable, I think.
Yeah.
It was the plays that led up to the Decorian Moore end-around touchdown, right? The 2 plays before that, you had a throwaway by Dante Moore, and you had a 4th down pickup by Kenyon Sadiq. First and foremost, just the throwaway by Moore, it just impressed me because it wasn't the type of play he was making as a starter at USC. There were a lot of times there where he would either force something or really try to make something work. And that was a situation where he probably could have tried to force something, but he didn't. He recognized the situation. He said, hey, it's going to be 4th and 2. It's fine. We're in field goal range if that's what coach wants to do. I'm just going to put this thing out of bounds. We're going to be fine.
Yeah.
That right there, I was already like, wow, okay, that right there is showing me, the type of growth that's happened as he's been here and with Will Stein. And the next play that actually, let's go one by one. Tell me, I would love to hear from you and your perspective on that kind of growth and that kind of mindset and those changes.
Well, one thing I really loved in terms of what, Lanning has preached to, his coaches, he wants always to be improving and learning, and he wants to as well. And one thing I heard in an interview with Will Stein, I believe it was last week, is how much that, he was bothered by some of his play calls, particularly at Washington, and in that loss, and that he didn't stick to his guns in those certain moments. And just realizing what you've run in practice is always probably going to be the best option. Trying to go and draw something up, unless it's an adjustment at halftime, straying away from your game plan, especially in key and critical moments, isn't going to make you often look like some genius. It's more often going to make you look bad. So it's just great to at least hear that personal growth from him and then see it executed out there on the field. Just because, it's not just the big plays, but how those are getting set up and the effort it takes from everybody at all positions to make sure that there's no breakdown in that.
Second one I wanted to bring up is the Kenyon Sadiq 4th down pickup, right? They run him out of the Wildcat. He's got Lamar next to him, which for my money does kind of seem like maybe at least the best lead blocker of the running back room. And what was really interesting about this is they had Gary Bryant off to one side, 2 tight ends to the left, and then all the way out to the left, they had Dante Moore. Now, obviously, they just ran it up the middle, had Lamar be a lead blocker, Sadiq followed him. The number one thing I thought when I saw that formation is this is a setup for later. This is a setup for later. You cannot convince me ever in a million years this is the only thing Stein's ever going to do out of this formation.
Oh,
love to hear your thoughts.
Definitely. I mean, I can imagine that that's probably something we might see a few times in a season, that maybe they just installed 1 or 2 plays this week, but definitely one of those things that, again, you're going to have to practice and set up as a defense coordinator. Okay, if we've got this personnel and they come out in this, here's how we have to line up. And again, even if they don't show it the rest of the season, it will probably be something they go out there and practice every once in a while and have in their back pocket, just because you never know. And we've had plays like that we never ran. In fact, when I got to go see Coach Lanning practice a couple of years, I remember getting to see some of their fourth down plays that they didn't run that season, but ended up trying to run a little bit last season. So those kind of things are really awesome to see, because you just know it's always in the bag if necessary, and the guys are practicing it, especially on those walkthrough days, and just making sure that maybe you just bust it out here and there.
And then lastly, of course, the Corian Moore end around touchdown. This one, it's everything we've talked about in terms of downfield blocking, in terms of people being on their assignment and everything like that. The only thing that I just wanted to bring up about it was, wow, can this kid glide? And my goodness, the awareness to be able to, hand that football off to the right hand, make sure you get it inside the pylon. Just a young kid playing with a wise mindset already. I would love to hear what you think.
Definitely doesn't look like any kind of a kid I've ever seen. That's for sure. We won't be calling him a freshman for much longer this season. The guy's established himself, obviously with the injury to Evan Stewart. He's had to, but doesn't seem to be any matter to him or this team. And again, if Lanning's always said, and all good coaches say, if you're old enough to play, you're good enough to play, and he's definitely proven not only old enough, he's good enough to dominate.
He certainly is. And the reason I wanted to go over that sequence of plays, I feel like every single one was positive, and we're all positive for a different reason. A lot of the things we like to talk about here are, of course, positive. In just a couple of moments we have left here, Nick, I do want to ask you, before we get to our players of the game, was there anything that really stuck out to you in terms of, this is something this team needs to work on?
Yeah, the duck being a little boo-boo, that was something that can be worked on.
You don't like Laboo Duck?
I mean, okay, concept, but I felt real bad for like the cowboy walk that person probably was doing the rest of the weekend after they took off the suit, because that looked painful, man. I don't know.
Okay, but did you see Laboo Duck push-ups? Those were great.
Yeah, and all the shoulders of the cheerleaders are all that much more sore for throwing that duck up and down. Yeah, see, just overall that could be improved upon. But hey, it's a long season. They've got the timing and concept exceptional, but execution left something to be desired, specifically with the thigh gap.
Well, besides the mascot, Nick, was there anything you saw on the field that you were like, this can be cleaned up, this can be worked on, or are you liking everything you're seeing so far?
Yeah, I mean, to say anything else would be like, and this is just the mean offensive lineman in me. Like, don't put your, don't take your foot off their throat in the fourth quarters. Run it up.
You don't get your fourth string quarterback killed?
No. Man, I'd say, yeah. I guess that's a great point. Yeah. If even if the whistle is blown, please protect your quarterback and get out of your stance as an offensive lineman. That did hurt to see, and that wasn't about like I stayed for the whole game this time, but that was about the point. Like, I should go home now.
I think that's about what every single person involved in the situation thinking at that point.
Yeah.
Nick, it's time now. We should go over our players of the game, just the guys that really stuck out to you. I don't know how you want to go about this. We can go back and forth if you want to.
No, you just name yours. Mine's the whole team, dude. It's hard for me to pick out anybody in this game. My player of the game is give it to Mike Gundy this week. He took it like a man that's 60.
Yeah, you know what? And you know what? Good on him for taking it. Yeah, you know what? I will say, I did see the video of him after the game taking a picture and laughing with Oregon fans, and I went, you know what? All right, there we go.
Yeah, he got some respect back from me because of that.
Oh, for sure. But if we're talking really like players of the game here and guys who like just popped off the page in terms of who I was really impressed by. Number one coming up right now, and he's not number one in tackles on defense. He's not going to be number one statistically, but if you were watching on the field, he is the one who of the starting unit was causing the most problems from this position. Folks, Jaden Kennedy is good.
Yeah.
Jaden Kennedy is a good player, and he is playing very well. I call it the nickel because that's what it is, but it's that star position on Dan Lanning's defense. He is so consistent and strong in that position. He's been a great pickup. 22 is a problem out there on defense for Oregon.
Yeah, another guy, obviously, and we're going to be saying it a lot, Mari Washington. That guy's he's not only a problem in terms of size, his get off of the football, his first step, his ability to anticipate the snap. It's all elite level defensive line play and something that hopefully we can make a more regular tradition at Oregon. But man, it's something we don't usually see here, especially from a guy that, really has been filling in as a backup to some real good NFL guys. So to just see him step up and take his place amongst them, it seems like really fun to watch.
Well, I think we all know the beauty of what Amari Washington's doing is that you're just putting more focus into the middle when you got those other demons coming around the outside, and they are causing some very, very real problems. Also, a guy we need to get a shout out, one of those edge rushers who causes all of those problems. Tatum Tuioti, 4 tackles, 2 of them by himself, as well as a sack and a tackle and a half for loss. Dude is really, really showed up this year in a way that I think a lot of people were knowing that knew he could. We all knew he was capable of this. He showed out really, really well his freshman year for sure. Last year might have been just a little bit of a step back, but my goodness, he is here in full force this season. Tatum's looked great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't really count as a defense, but, we haven't had enough, necessary special teams play. But I think getting our punter out there on the field, getting a nice little punt, inside the 5,
Yep.
that was nice. That was nice to see. And, like Lanning said, gotta get your punter out there some point or he might hit the portal. So that was good to see. That'll be my 3rd defensive player.
Heading over to the offensive side right now, obviously, freshman wide receiver going for 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 through the air. Got to give him credit. His name has to be on here. Shout out to Corian Moore, number 1. All those number 1 jerseys you see being sold, I'm guessing they're his.
Yeah, absolutely. The other guy out there, obviously, is scoring the very first touchdown and then setting up the block for that first touchdown for DeCorian. Got to give it to Noah Whittington. The guy's completely stepped up. Looks to be an even better player than he was pre-injury, and that's saying something.
Finally, last one I'm going to mention. He's had 1 carry for 3 yards. He also had 2 catches for 40 yards, but that's not why he's on my list. He's on my list for what he was doing as a blocker. That is Kenyon Sadiq. The way that he has set the tone, and here's the thing, he's leading by example right now. This is a guy who's considered by many to be one of the top tight ends in the nation, if not a top tight end in the nation, and he is doing all of the little things you ask him to do, all of the little dirty pieces of the game that, might not get all the glory. He is out there and doing it and putting in that effort. It is so impressive. Also, again on the rewatch, Gary Danielson, a guy who's watched a lot of football, he made a comparison. He said, Kenyon Sadiq reminds me a whole lot of Kellen Winslow Sr., and that is a heck of a comparison to be making.
Yeah, absolutely. It's man, that is high praise, but he's definitely such a tool in football that you can use in so many different ways, and it's awesome to see our staff. I mean, you're setting him up for great things too, because man, as soon as you start thinking that this guy's just going to come kick your ass on a block and then peels out, turns out they're throwing to him. I mean, just the level of athlete he is and the threat he is to the defense from so many different positions. Yeah, gotta be notable mention there.
Well, Nick, 69-3, nice, is about as big an ass kicking as you are going to see. It's the biggest in Oregon history against a group of 4, I guess Power 4 team now, against a Power 4 team. And my goodness, that was one of the most impressive we have seen. Before we get to our guest, do you have anything you have to say to top off this conversation on the Oregon-Oklahoma State game?
No, it is the one unfortunate thing and point of conversation that's come up again and again is that, this really is kind of a benchmark to show the changes in college football, the landscape, and really the differences. There's no comparison to the Holiday Bowl teams that went out there and had a thrilling game. Just the state of these two programs right now, and credit to Oregon because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And Oregon's really strived to put not just with NIL and everything. I think everybody makes that, but look at the infrastructure that they have not only built, that they are not satisfied with keeping the same. They're constantly improving the structures of which we have already built a great foundation for, and are building a championship program. And if you don't believe it, in the past couple of weeks that we're on that path, that we're in that category, you just ain't been watching Oregon football.
Well, folks, That's your call to action right there. Start watching some Oregon football. Get up nice and early, make some breakfast, be ready to go. Maybe the Bloody Marys will be ready to roll. I can tell you mine will be. 9 a.m. kickoff on Fox. Gus Johnson will be there to be unexcited halfway through the third quarter. It is going to be a blast. But now, folks, we have our first interview of the year coming up for you. This is one I'm very excited about. You may know him from his weekly radio show in Eugene, The Icky Life. You might also know him as your on-field MC at Autzen Stadium. Folks, Andrew Icky Rosborough. Man, I'm so glad to have you here.
No, thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here, man.
So first and foremost, I was doing the minimal amount of show research we do here, which, trust me, it very rarely goes beyond rewatching a game and maybe just seeing who it is we are interviewing.
Okay.
But I was doing some reading, and I actually happened upon a story that kind of tells us how you ended up with the nickname that everybody knows you for. Everyone knows you as Icky. Do you mind telling us that story really quick? Just because it's such a great story. I would love to hear it from you to get this thing started.
Well, when I very first started in radio over 20 years ago, people just called me Andy, and it was a hard rock station up in Portland that doesn't exist anymore. And my boss pulled me aside one day, and he's like, Andy is the least rock and roll name in the history of names, so we need to have something new for you. So because I'm a tall, nerdy guy with a big nose, they started calling me Ichabod, as in like Ichabod Crane from Sleepy Hollow. And one day I got tapped to go interview Snoop Dogg at the Keller Auditorium, and this was in the sticky icky days of Snoop Dogg's mini personalities. And when we sat down together, he's like, Ichabod, you mean like icky, like sticky icky? So if that happens in your life, your name is now Icky. Yeah, if Snoop Dogg gives you a nickname, you take it and run.
Absolutely. So what everybody is probably dying to know is, how do you get the gig of being the Autzen MC?
Well, I work in broadcasting here in Eugene. We're the flagship station for the Ducks. And I was honestly at the Idaho game last year and was sitting up in the club, like watching the MC do their thing. And I'm like, that looks like so much fun. I just want to try it. Like, give me one shot. So I reached out to my good friend Joey Mack with Oregon Sports Network, and he connected me with the right people to start the conversations. And they gave me a test run at a volleyball game, and just to see if I, would completely freeze in the bright lights. And it's that gig. I'm just an overprivileged fan, really. So I did the volleyball game, and it went well enough that the next game was Michigan State last season. That was my first time standing in front of Autzen, and I'm glad I did, because I got to be on the field for the Ohio State game, which was something I'll never forget. Like Uncle Phil was right here when the clock hit 0. That was pretty cool.
Well, man, I remember the first time I was seeing you do it, of course, was that Michigan State game last year. That was a game, and then, of course, followed by the Ohio State game, that were just two such big events back-to-back for the Oregon community. What was your first impression of that gig, kind of, whether it was how the crowd was reacting or just what it was like to be on the field in those moments and in those atmospheres?
I've been a Duck fan since I was born. I'm a legacy. My dad's a Duck. My sister's a Duck. My grandparents are Ducks. So I've been going to Autzen since it was just a hole in the hill, pretty much. So I've grown up always wanted to be on that field. And I also got spoiled as a kid. My dad worked in television news. He was a filmographer. So he spent a lot of time on the field, and occasionally I got to go down there with him when I was a kid. So I've always had that urge to be down on the field. And when they gave me the shot, I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. It's okay. Just let me go down there. This is going to be great.
Man, what is your new perspective from the field? What has surprised you the most? What have you experienced that you weren't expecting to see being down there in front of the game?
Oh man. Great question. First, the noise. Like you can always feel the noise of Autzen in your chest as a spectator, but when you're down actually on the field, it's a whole different level of impact, especially at the Ohio State game, with like the Go Ducks before the game when it's going from one side of the stadium to the other. That was like a special moment for me. So the noise, number one, the heat on these September games, that field just radiates heat, and I'm already a very sweaty person, so that's just not good for me.
Man, well, speaking of these first couple of early September games, you've gotten an up close look at this new Oregon team here in 2025. It's a team that's had a lot of turnover, but has looked really good from the jump. As somebody who's able to be there on the field, whether it's the speed, whether it's the strength, what is really impressing you about this group of Oregon football players?
The first thing I noticed in these first two games is that they're having fun. There isn't a whole lot of stressful moments. They're dancing around. They're joking. Like at that first game when we went into shout and the team that wasn't involved in the huddle were all having a great time. There was a moment I was just standing there going, this is going to be a fun year. If this is the mentality they have, they're so prepared that game time is fun time. And that was the first impactful thing I saw.
With all the obligations you have during the game and your new perspective on the field, you find yourself ever missing some moments or having to go back and rewatch games now?
Yeah, I do. I'm starting to get more on national TV more often. So that whenever those moments happen, my phone blows up. But I have to go back and watch the games because I miss the big plays when I'm running from one side of the stadium to the other, or just trying to read a script so I don't embarrass myself in front of 60,000 people. I have missed a couple of big plays and had the moment of what I meant. Like, so yeah, but by no means complaining.
Well, Andrew, one thing I've always wondered about, and this is coming from the perspective of somebody who was a student and got brought down onto the field to do some of those games and events and stuff like that. As somebody who gets to host those and be a part of those, is there one part of that experience that you love the most, whether being able to interact with the crowd and being able to interact with the people who are involved with these games and activities?
Well, I think you can speak for that. The nerves that hit you when you're the contestant, like right before it's go time. I think that's my favorite moment when I can turn to them and be like, it's going to be okay. We're going to have fun. Just take a deep breath. And you can see that moment of like relief in their eyes. Like, okay, good. Cause I was just about to have a bad day. So I think that's my one of my favorite moments is like for the Safeway shuffle and things like that. People, that's a lot of people. And you don't really register how many are looking at you until you're walking out on the field.
Well, that actually brings me to a follow-up question. If anybody guesses a wrong helmet, where does that card go? Do you just get to slide that in the back pocket, or what happens with that?
We still give it away.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
I mean, I try and help them out. Honestly, Autzen does all the help for them because it can be hard to understand what they're screaming, but everyone's doing fingers or something for what helmet it's going to be. So I just whisper to them while we're watching, like, just look at the crowd. Just watch and let them help you out. Because in the moment, those things are moving fast.
So far in your tenure, do you have any favorite contestants or on-field people that you had to work with that stand out as particularly memorable?
What do you mean by like actual just fans or the people that I've gotten to?
Regardless,
Kenyon Barner is one of my favorites.
Oh yeah,
that guy is delightful, and it blows me away that when he sees me, he actually remembers me. That just makes my heart happy. And he's just an easygoing, fun dude. Also very stylish. I'm always surprised by what he's wearing. Who else? Really, I that's the one that stands out. But I'm just happy to be down there, man. I'm blessed every time I walk out of that tunnel. Like for sound check before we get started, I have that moment of like, I'm back. All right.
Well, Andrew, one thing that I needed to ask you about, and it's something that I would love to ask, a longtime Duck fan and somebody who's been around it for so long. For many, many years, this program had such a clear, like family tree. You could see how one thing led to another, whether it was coaching staffs or players and everything like that. And then, there were a few years where things were being switched up. You had, 2 coaches in 5 years, and then you had Dan Lanning come in. And it seems like now with Lanning back, even more so than with the Chris Paul era, with the Taggart era, you have a lot of the people who were a part of that family tree for so many years now reconnecting in a way, whether it's the people you see on the sidelines, whether it's the people you see involved with these kind of things. A memory that comes to my mind was just watching Kenyon Barner and TJ Ward at the Ohio State game last year and how engaged they were with the team and everything like that. As somebody who's seen it for so long and been around it in one capacity or another, what is it about what's happening on that sideline in those locker rooms with this team right now that has everybody coming together in such a communal way?
I think you nailed it with the verbiage family. I think that once you're a Duck, you're part of the crew for life. It's like a fraternity. If I want to use that word. It's hard not to fall in love with it. How happy everyone. I mean, like JPJ would be a great example of this year. He just wants to be there. He just wants to have some fun. And in this last game, he was down there just throwing a football into the stands before the game started and having people throw it back. And you can, every single person he interacted with, that changed not their day, but like their season, because they had that memory of playing catch with the former player at Autzen Stadium. On the sidelines, everyone's kind of, even some of the larger celebrities met, like Ty Burrell and Kristen Olsen at the Ohio State game. Even with people of their stature, they still feel giddy when they're down there, and that I can't really quantify the excitement people get, but it's very real and it's palpable. And I just hope that they can keep it going, that all these generations of Ducks are still part of the family.
Oh, definitely. I think that even from my time there, and it's even reminds me of times we saw our friend from the show, Neil Everett, Ty Burrell, all those guys on the sideline. It's so cool to just go fist bump them, and it makes their day, and they've made your day, and it lasts forever. I mean, so that's always very cool to hear. One thing here we have to always ask at the podcast, and I'm going to steal it from Sam, okay. Longtime Ducks fan. I want to know, what is your favorite uniform combination the Ducks have worn of all time?
Oh man. Okay. That's the hardest question I've heard in a long time.
That's why Maddie stole it from me.
I mean, there's so many to choose from, but there's been so many great ones through the year. Honestly, when they first went to the O, I actually went to that press conference when they released it, and it's some of the early ones that had the metal slating on the shoulders, like the Harrington days. Those were, I really had a special place in my heart for. But the throwbacks they did against Washington when they brought out the Kenny Wheaton jersey, which I still have mine, and I'll be wearing it this year when Washington comes. I love those. That throwback, or quite possibly a second place, would be the one with the orange socks, like actual duck feet that they did as well. Some of the throwback ones that bring back the old school colors. And pay homage to the 90s and the Bilottis and the Brooks of days. So that I really like those.
Well, you said it earlier, Andrew, from where we are now, it is worth remembering this whole thing did come from a hole in a hill.
Yeah.
This whole thing came from a hole in a hill. And we really appreciate having you on. We'd love to give you a chance to tell us about anything you're working on right now. We know you're on the field at Autzen, but we know you also have a ton of other things going on.
Yep, I'll continue being your on-field MC this season at Autzen. I'm also going to be your court MC for basketball this upcoming season as well. My main job is I'm a radio host here in Eugene, 103.7 KNRQ. You can stream my show live 3 to 6 every afternoon from nrq.com for free. And if you want to find me on socials, I will say I'm not the greatest at social media, but every once in a while I do tune in, and that's at the Icky Life. So where you can find me.
Well, folks, you heard that. Make sure you're following at the Icky Life. And I believe, and if I'm not mistaken, you do share a studio with some people who are some friends of ours down there in Eugene.
I do. I'm very close with my boy Jerry Allen. We go way back. I love that man so much, and also Joey Mack. All those guys, all the broadcasting team for the Ducks are just good people.
So before we wrap up, I got to know two things with the Northwestern game this week. What will you be doing to enjoy and watch the game? Early 9 o'clock kickoff. And what's your prediction for the game? We've got a score prediction.
My prediction is more bad days for our opposing team. They really got to stop talking shit. I don't know what they're thinking by dumping a few flames on the fire. I mean, Lanning continues to show that they don't need that motivation, but they're still getting it. So I think that it's going to be a slaughter in Chicago. What's the spread right now? 27.5, something like that. I mean, we over doubled it this last week. So look out. It's going to be ugly. I can't wait. I'll be sitting at home hiding from my girlfriend or daughter because they're not big football fans, but that's where I'll be.
A little bit of breakfast in Oregon football. Nothing wrong with that. Follow him at the Icky Life. Andrew, thanks so much for coming on and joining us, man. Hey, we really appreciate it.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. I hope to be back on someday, and go Ducks.
Go Ducks.
Well, Nick, it's always great to be able to get guests in here on the show. I know we're going to be doing it a lot more throughout the rest of this season, but especially somebody with Andrew's perspective, it's so nice to be able to hear, somebody who's down on that Autzen field all the time, and then somebody who remembers when this program really was that hole in a hill.
Exactly, man. And obviously, this season, it's going to be really special to get that on-field perspective, and good to know we always have it. I can't wait till I get down there and can hopefully give him a little fist bump before one of the games or something. So very awesome. Want to thank him again for giving us the time to come on and let us know what you guys thought and future guests you want to see down in the comments below. Well, moving on, we got our first Big Ten game of the season going on the road to a bit of an unfamiliar territory, not just for Oregon, but even Northwestern. This is just a temporary area, a soccer field sitting right there on the lake. Rumors everywhere that we hope the big inflatable duck might just show up and peek his head over, take a look at the field from there. But I don't know. A couple Ducks fans I know excited to go out there to Chicago, make the trip. Obviously, I'm excited to see how this team responds to going out and playing on the road, but don't know a whole lot about this Northwestern team. Sam, what have you seen?
Well, I'll tell you what, Nick, I was able to watch a bit of their last game, and they played Western Illinois. Were able to get a 42-7 win in that game to pull themselves to 1-1 on the season. As I'm sure many people know, their first game of the year, they went to Tulane, and that did not go very well for the Wildcats. In fact, it resulted in a 23-3 loss at Tulane in their season opener. I will say, though, and as somebody who does kind of believe in the magic of the moment and the magic of circumstance and everything like that, that was the, I believe, 20th year commencement anniversary for Tulane of Katrina for that game. And when they asked Northwestern if they could wear white uniforms to commemorate the team that wore white uniforms, Northwestern said no, and Tulane laid it on them like a team that would have said no to that request. I'm not saying that that's not who these teams are. Tulane is actually a very good group of five team, one that tends to create a lot of talent that ends up playing at bigger schools a year or two later. Mekhi Hughes being a great example of that. I'm not necessarily surprised by that, but man, Northwestern looked a lot better last week against Western Illinois. Few guys that stuck out to me. Number one guy that I was like, oh, wow, this is a player, not just a Northwestern, this is a player at just about any Big Ten school here. Cam Porter, the running back, number 4, averaged 7.6 yards per carry. Just a tough guy to bring down. It's never the first tackler that's bringing him to the dirt, He had a touchdown in that game, a long run of 43 yards in which he was shaking off tacklers and dragging people. And I think in a game, when you are playing an opponent that outmatches you like Northwestern is going to be, being able to keep the ball on the ground, be able to keep the chains moving and limit Oregon's time of possession, total plays, and be able to limit their snaps in general, that's going to benefit Northwestern.
Yeah, absolutely. And just overall, just with this program, and its fit in the Big Ten, overall, they're going to have to take those kind of advantages that they can find them, because you're obviously not going to be able to recruit on the levels with the Ohio States, the Michigans, even Oregon.
I mean, you are completely right about that. A couple of guys that do fit the bill for me, at least in terms of Big Ten players. A couple of guys that I was watching. Number 1, Griffin Wild, number 17, the receiver. 6'2", 200-pound junior. That's a big wide receiver right there. That's a good body on the outside. Also, I'm going to mess up this name, but Ricky Ahamarazi is a guy who also 6'4", 210-pound receiver there on the outside, especially for these young corners who might still be growing into that full college football body we're going to see them have next year and the year after. These guys could present a little bit of a challenge. Yeah,
dude, definitely, especially, considering the level of opponent we've had these past couple of weeks. It's going to be awesome to be tested.
It 100% will be, and the guy who's going to be doing that testing is Preston Stone, who is their quarterback. Finished 21 of 29, 245 yards, 3 touchdowns. Very respectable stat line, something maybe you're hoping somebody does against Western Illinois, but he absolutely did deliver and do the things you want him to do. Also, and I will say, some of the things that impressed me watching him play, he's not just going to be, your typical Big Ten quarterback who's just going to look to hand the ball off and be able to find his open receiver. He's a guy who's able to move around, move with the pocket. Obviously, Northwestern doesn't quite have the caliber of offensive line that you might see out of some of these other Big Ten schools, but he's a guy who's able to move with that and make it happen. His first touchdown pass was one where he had to step all the way up into the pocket, almost to the point where he was crossing the line of scrimmage, got a safety to come up with him, still kept his eyes downfield, was able to throw a touchdown pass. He's somebody who, especially dealing with this Oregon team that's going to create havoc up front, that ability to move and still keep your eyes downfield is going to be big.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be a great opportunity for our defense to go and try and make him uncomfortable up front, and just to hopefully outmatch them as we should in most positions, and then just going out there and executing. But you never know until you see it, especially with 9 a.m. Pacific time kickoff.
Well, that's exactly right. I feel like, again, one of those points somebody brings up throughout the week and sticks with you. There have been a whole lot of Big Ten games where Northwestern has played a team that was supposed to come in and beat them pretty good for one of those real early morning games that ends up halfway through the third or fourth quarter sitting there going, why is this a 7 or 10 point game right now? This thing is close and dirty and nasty and messy. And you're dealing with a team that has gone to Big Ten championships within the last 7 years. They've been to a couple of them, in fact. And they're a team that knows the position they're coming from and knows how to play that way, and you're going to have to deal with that. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this game does kind of get slowed down a little bit, at least at first, and made difficult or as difficult as possible for this Oregon team. One guy who I think can help with that, Carmine Bostone, 6'2", 290-pound D lineman, one of their most productive players. In fact, he was their leading tackler against Western Illinois. 4 tackles, 3 of them all by himself, as well as a sack and a half, tackle for a loss and a half as well. One of the guys who I think can get out there and be able to slow things down a little bit. But frankly, I think we know the kind of strength and power this Oregon team is going to be bringing to this game.
Yeah, and obviously with that early schedule, it's good to know that the team is already been getting up. You know, I've heard rumors out there in the media that the DB room has been getting up at 4 o'clock to get over to practice early, and they're starting practice at 9 a.m. right now. So that's great to know. That's that huge big shift we made in the Chip Kelly days, was start practice in the morning, because you could adjust your schedule that much easier for those potential opportunities.
Well, and you know what? This is going to be a big opportunity for Oregon, because it's not just your season opener. It's not just a game in a major market like Chicago. It is a game on big noon kickoff, one of the time slots that regularly will have some of the biggest viewing numbers in the nation week by week. There are some big games this week, no doubt, but this Oregon game, it's probably at least one of the more potentially interesting you could see in that early morning time slot. Obviously, Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt, they'll be on the call there. I really like this Oregon team getting an opportunity like this in front of the nation, like they were able to do last week against Oklahoma State. Also, with the upcoming Civil War game being on the Big Ten Network, you have to assume this is the last time a lot of the nation is really going to watch Oregon play live. Go put on a show. Go watch them play live before Penn State, I should say. Before the Big Penn State matchup.
That's a good point. But hey, I think the only thing I'm worried about this week is, again, not just the team taking it on the road, playing mistake-free as much as possible in that environment. And then for me, just getting my ass out of bed early enough so I can go watch it at GameWorks. Otherwise, man, it's all excitement. Can't wait to see what this team has in the bag, and always excited. Not only do we get our first road game, we get our first road games Duck versus them. That's really going to be the special thing, other than hopefully the results on the field that I'm looking forward to.
Well, and Nick, I'm right there with you. Just like everybody else in this fan base, we're here for the soap opera that is the season. What fun would it be if we weren't? We're absolutely here for it. Man, this is going to be another very fun chapter, playing a team that Oregon hasn't played in a very, very long time. In fact, that sounds like a fun little trivia question. Nick, can you tell me the last time that Oregon played Northwestern?
Ooh, 1982.
1982 is your guess. The correct answer is 1974.
Ooh,
not too far away there. Too far away.
For just a stab in the dark, it wasn't too bad. I'll live with it.
That wasn't too bad whatsoever. That last matchup, it was in Evanston, Illinois, where this game's going to be played. That was an October the 5th matchup, 1974. Northwestern won 14-10. Nick, I can't guarantee it. Got a feeling there's going to be some more points in this one.
Maybe, you never know with the side. Maybe, Oregon just goes, man, I've never played in front of a crowd this small. Let's keep that score nice and low. But I have a feeling it might not quite be like that on Saturday.
Well, and I will say, this is a very unique game for one very specific portion of this team that I'm very excited to see how they react to it. I want to see how this team kicks and punts with potential wind coming right off of Lake Michigan and into that stadium.
Oh yeah. Hopefully, ideally, we don't have to punt, but got to keep that guy out of the transfer portal. So,
well, and I don't know if you saw, he did comment on social media. Part-time punter, full-time holder.
I heard he was trying to run some quarterback in the scout team too. Love that attitude, man.
Hey, as much as we can get of that as possible. I know that we said, I think it was Dan Lanning said Ross James did the same thing. He's been playing receiver for the scout team. You got to love these guys who are just getting out there and willing to give it up for this team.
It just goes towards, the same thing that we've been saying this whole episode and probably going to be saying a lot this season. Just the selflessness of these guys for the teammates. That is just so huge. You really can't coach that. You can't, just inject it into your team. You have to really, really build that. And it's been built.
It has been built. It's been built up, I dare say, from a hole in a hill, Nick.
Gotta love it, man. Gotta love it when it can all come back to the origin. And that's really the great thing about Oregon and why we're always here at Once a Duck. So we got one way to wrap it up. We got to get with some predictions, Sam. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off here. I think we may see a little bit of a slower start than we're used to, but that's not saying much when you score 2 touchdowns in the first 3 plays. I imagine we'll have a little bit of a slow wake up, but I imagine once we get this offensive rolling, we'll score in the 40s. We'll probably hold Northwestern. I want to say in single digits, but I'm going to go with the teens. So with this, I'm going 45-14 Duckies.
You know what, Nick? That's basic. Again, we are getting to the point where we give these predictions every single week, and we're starting to think a little bit too much on the same page because you're very, very close to where I was with this one. I really, really do like that 45 score a lot, but I'm going to give our kickers just a little bit extra credit on this one. I'm going to say the wind is in their favor for this game. I'm going to say this one finishes 48-10. I do believe in this Oregon defense being able to play some good ball, being able to keep Penn State away from that end zone. I think that giving up that 3 points is something that Dan Lanning is going to harp on from that Oklahoma State game. We all know the reason that drive continued was because they came with a lot of pressure and somebody was able to get free deep downfield. He even said they gave one away right there. I really do think this team is going to come with a very, very, very intent goal of keeping Northwestern as quiet as possible. And in a stadium where you have only a few thousand people there, it might be a pretty quiet day.
Yeah, got to bring your own shout. Get that game over with in 3 quarters and bring your own shout on the sideline. That's what I'd like to see.
I'm right there with you, Nick. Well, you heard our predictions. You heard everything else involved with this show. Folks, you can always follow him at Nick Arcody, me at Samuel101TS, and the show at Once a Duck. Nick, is there anything else these people need to know?
They need to let us know their scores on social media, and you get one right, we'll read it on the show one of these days. But we'll see you guys hopefully here in the next week in Autzen Stadium. And until then, go Ducks! Once a Duck, always a Duck.